Tottenham, they're plus 100, hosting Newcastle plus 250. The draws plus 260. Great first half from Newcastle. And then I thought they were pretty lackluster in the second against Everton. But you can see it, like, we clearly have a big one like Man City. Then we have an almost as big three with Liverpool, Arsenal. Maybe it's just two, honestly. And then there's four other teams that you can say are really close with Chelsea, United, Spurs, and Newcastle. It's annoying to admit, but it's true just because of how they've achieved that status. Is it different from how City has? I don't know. That's for stuff for another podcast to discuss. We'll discuss it from a betting perspective, and from a betting perspective, I think Newcastle is worth a shot here, and I feel like Anthony would agree with me.
Yeah.
I just want to bring up two prices on the board here because they're basically sitting at the same price, right? Spurs even money at home against Newcastle, and Chelsea even money at home against United. I'll be on the underdog in both of them because I really think that all four of these teams are, like, if they played 100 times, each team's probably taking 25 to 30 of them. So yeah, I'll be on Newcastle here. The underlying numbers, we've talked about it, they keep getting better. Don't think I'm too worried about the stylistic issues with when you play Spurs. I don't think Newcastle will be with Guimaraes. I know Joe Linton left hurt, so that's a little upsetting for a Newcastle bet, but I just don't think they'll be susceptible to the Tottenham counters as other teams who like to keep the ball on the floor.
Yeah, it's weird. The two matches for Tottenham that you can point at and be like, hey, like, they looked really, really bad was the match against Arsenal, and then this last match against Manchester United, where it just seemed like they couldn't even string a pass together. I mean, Tottenham got outshot.
They weren't that good against Chelsea either.
No, so they really weren't. They got a couple. They went down 2-0, and then they got a couple chances that went in. They were tied. Sorry, excuse me. No, they didn't go down 2-0. Anyway, today, like, they couldn't string any passes together. They got outshot 28-9. United just lived in there, and United, who is not a good pressing team, was able to press Tottenham effectively. Newcastle's forced the most high turnovers in the Premier League. Like, their passes per defensive action is top 5 this year. Like, they have turned into a really, really good team. They have a better expected goal differential than Tottenham. Even with that being said, like, I do project a little bit of value on Tottenham. A lot of it has to do with prior year data. Anthony will probably, scream at me saying Tottenham was not a +1 XG differential team per 90 last season. The numbers are what they are, Anthony. So, it's a very interesting matchup because you can say, is Newcastle going to hold a lot of possession? Are they going to be able to do what United was able to do to Tottenham today on the road at White Hart Lane? I don't know. I don't know if after today's performance, if Antonio Conte will be discouraged and he'll ask his team to provide a little bit more energy, control the ball more. I think that would benefit Tottenham greatly if they decided to play a little more aggressive. Ishak is out for Newcastle. St. Maximum is doubtful. So a couple positives there for Tottenham. I do think the number is about correct. It is interesting because you think about it. Manchester United was even money against Newcastle the previous match, and then now they have a common opponent. Tottenham at least has a common opponent now, and they just got throttled by United today. So you could make that case, but yeah, for me, I'm staying away. I'm just gonna be very, very interested to see how Tottenham plays in this one, because like you said, like against the big six, they've struggled. They've struggled. So if Newcastle, which we think with the amount of money they're pouring into the team, 5 years from now it might be a big 7. Who knows?
It's closer than that.
So this is probably what, for me, one of the more interesting matches to see. Okay, where is Newcastle pegged up around the big 6, and is Tottenham just beating up on the lower half of the table, or can they actually compete with the team, teams in the higher half? Because, they were before today, they were only 4 points off Arsenal. Like they were on,
Yeah.
it was their best start since the 1960s. Like, and fans like Anthony are talking about like, oh, I hate the way they play. Like
it's funny, right?
there's still problems. It's not all good in Tottenham land. And like, it's interesting. Yeah. So I think this match is going to be very, very interesting. But yeah, so I'm passing, but because I think the number's correct.
And one thing I want to bring up with Newcastle too is we're now closing in on a year since that January transfer window, when they brought in Bruno, when they brought in Kieran Trippier, when they brought in even like Dan Burn and Chris Wood. Like the team is now, we're a year from Eddie Howe moving Joe Linton from up front to the defensive midfield. Like they're a much more cohesive unit. They're not like just a bunch of talented players. Now it's actually a team. They've got a good goalkeeper. They're formidable.
Yeah, and one thing I'll be interested to see, they have Aston Villa and Southampton next. I'll be just really interested to see what the prices are for those matches, to see how the markets are they going to start. Obviously it depends on what happens in this one, but is Newcastle going to start to get completely overvalued and we have to stomach an Aston Villa +1 or a Southampton +1.5? I don't know. We'll see.
We started to see it 2 seasons ago, maybe. I think it was 2 seasons ago, and then a little last year with West Ham. But there was like this thing in the market where you'd see the big 6 get priced where they were, or it was really like the big 5 because Arsenal hadn't really found it yet.
Right.
And then you'd have like the Leicester, and then whoever was struggling out of that big 6 be kind of priced in their own little universe. So that's Newcastle right now. I think we'll start to see them continue to trend up.